Welcome back to the Blockbusters show. I am Adam Sykes, and today we're going to be doing a movie marathon. One of the shorter movie marathons we've done in quite a while. Usually we talk about like 7, 8, 9 movies a video. This time we're going to keep it simple. We're just going to talk about 6 movies. And the reoccurring theme in all of them is that they're from the 2000s. So this is the second time we're doing a 2000s movie marathon for this show. In grand Blockbusters tradition, I'm going to do a movie marathon specifically on movies that I wanted to talk about for videos but didn't really find a whole lot to say, or maybe they had like a couple of interesting things but not enough to make for a full review. And well, like I said, the overarching theme with all of them is that they're from the 2000s, and I figured it's a good enough time to talk about these movies because they're all still relatively fresh in my mind, and I just wanted to get them out of the way. So with all that being said, we're going to talk about these movies in order of the years they came out. So we're going to start with a movie that came out in 2002, that being the Rollerball remake. So for those who don't know, the original Rollerball was a 70s movie starring the late great James Caan that was based on a short story about the titular fictional sport. And well, it took place in the futuristic year of 2018, in a time period where books were basically non-existent, most information was found on a supercomputer, and the billionaires and corporations were ruling the world in some kind of oligarchy. The actual story itself is about James Caan, who's apparently the best player of this fictional rollerball sport, and well, the powers that be, the higher-ups that are controlling the sport, they want him out of the picture because he's slowly coming across some kind of conspiracy about how, you know, the game is rigged, and basically the whole thing is supposed to be some kind of commentary on the sort of corporatization of sport and how, you know, a lot of sports are run by these big corporations and how they pull strings to make sure that somebody wins or that the games are rigged and go a certain way. It's that kind of thing. James Caan's character, being the best at what he does, wants to push forward and show he's still got it, even if they're trying to force him out. And they decide to turn up the heat on him by making the sport 10 times harder as a way to potentially scare him away or just straight up kill him. It's one of those movies that has a very interesting premise, and the original movie I think is a very good film, and I feel like if they wanted to do another version of it, you could totally do it, especially in this day and age with a lot of these movies that have these sort of themes. But the 2002 remake of Rollerball is just bad. First of all, major step down in the fact that you're replacing James Caan with Chris Klein. You know, the football kid Ox from American Pie.
That didn't quite work out.
You know, coach wanted me to play D.
What'd you do, hit him?
Should've.
I mean, even if you don't think he's a very bad actor, he's nowhere on the level of James Caan. But there's a bunch of stuff that they changed from the original story in the original 70s movie to this one. They don't even have it take place in 2018. They don't even try to have a whole like future society here. This time they have it take place in 2005, which was, I don't know, 3 years in the future. It was originally set to release in 2001, but then it got pushed back to 2002. So yeah, it really wasn't that far ahead in the future. This time you have it that Chris Klein, he is this major sports guy, and he ends up getting an invite to join this sport that's somewhere out in South Asia. And of course, this sport is the titular rollerball. And well, you kind of have the same plot of like, you know, commentary on bureaucracy and how sports are rigged and like all the sports entertainment pushes its players to the point of physical harm just for the sake of, you know, ratings and viewership and profit. This movie does say a lot of the same things that the first movie did, but the first movie did it just leagues above this one. And this is definitely one of those remakes that's style over substance. I mean, the original movie, it had its own unique look, its own unique feel. This one, on the other hand, this is edited like a fucking music video half the time. And that's the other thing, the music in this movie, holy crap. I mean, the original movie had classical music throughout most of it, which sort of gave it this like timeless charm to it. They didn't try to make it sound like 2018 future music or anything. In this movie, you got fucking like all the new metal butt rock that people were listening to. Like, you know, you got Rob Zombie in there and Slipknot's in there.
Fuck with the Wizard guy.
Also try to change things up by having more characters. You have the token hip black best friend played by LL Cool J.
It's 2 more years, I have enough to retire. Support my family for life. They love Americans over there, especially babyface boy next door types like you.
They also throw in a love interest, because obviously they do. And the one thing that I can remember about the whole romance subplot of the movie is, well, they first discover the kind of hidden underlying plot that's going on in the shadows of Rollerball while they're about to have sex in a locker room. You're gonna have sex in a locker room? A place that mostly smells like fucking sweat, body odor, and feet? That's fucking disgusting. Last thing about the movie itself I wanted to comment on was the editing, because there are just so many points in the editing where you could tell that they were just like ripping stuff out of the movie's plot and out of the movie's script, because there are so many times where the editing is just so sloppy. It doesn't help that the movie's editing already feels like a shitty music video. Have jump cuts. They'll linger on someone's face, and instead of like maybe cutting to like a reverse shot of somebody else like looking at them while they talk or whatever, instead they do these like lazy zoom in effects on the person's face.
It was a long night, huh?
I was, yeah, party, the usual thing with the team.
We found your car.
They do this like, you know, green tinted night vision shit. It is so fucking ugly to look at.
We're being chased by our own bodyguards.
As bad as this movie is, the reason I didn't do this as a full review is because there really wasn't a whole lot to talk about other than, yeah, it's just a really inferior, shitty version of a movie that was already done well in the 70s. This is also one of those movies where, after doing a little bit of digging, I found that the backstory for the movie was more interesting than the actual movie itself. Rollerball is the kind of movie that should be known for its social commentary, and this movie tried to take the basic premise and sort of key ideas of that and tried to morph it into this dumb summer blockbuster popcorn sports action flick. And it just feels like they missed the point entirely. And then when the movie was starting to go into shambles and they had to drastically rip things out, they had to try and put the movie back together with Scotch tape with really crappy ass editing. So yeah, that's all that really needs to be said about Rollerball 2002.
Hey, thanks for saving my ass today.
Anytime.
And speaking of remakes, that brings us to the second movie of this video, Walking Tall, yet another remake of a 70s movie. The original Walking Tall was based on a book and also I think a TV miniseries that was based on a local legend. He was this town sheriff. Apparently this guy was some kind of one-man police station, essentially. He was a one-man show who went after so many different types of corruption and crime, whether it was crooked cops, pimps, drug dealers, you name it. He was apparently a huge town legend. And so, like I said, they made a movie out of him. They wrote his story as a book. It was made into a TV movie. And then you get the 2004 movie starring The Rock, and much like Rollerball, it feels like a remake in name only. Yes, some of the key plot elements are there, but it's not necessarily the same. I mean, as far as I can remember, The Rock's character in this movie is named Chris, which was not the name of the town sheriff that the original story was based on. And the location is different. This time it takes place in Washington. They basically take sort of the key concept of a guy who basically goes up against this whole crooked, corrupt small town and basically works his way into becoming the new town sheriff that all the townspeople need to help lead them out of all this corruption and shit that's been polluting their town. Basically what you got here is Chris, played by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, back when he actually was trying to be a serious actor, versus nowadays where he just mostly does a lot of like big studio projects and stuff that's related to popular brands and tie-ins, and if he's not doing that, he's making shit like Red One. In this movie, he plays an army guy named Chris who comes back to his small town, and he's noticed that everything's gone to hell. I mean, the first sign of trouble for him is that the small mill that everybody loved working at has been shut down.
The mill closed.
3 years ago this August. If you're looking for work, you might want to try Aberdeen. That's about the closest mill work you're going to find around here.
And the only thing that's bringing any money into that town's economy is a casino that's run by one of his former friends, and goes on to later be the bad guy for the movie.
Done after I triple my money.
Yeah, right. That's what you said last time. Yeah, you wound up selling your body for bus fare. You had to walk.
That casino is basically just one big hodgepodge of a bunch of different crime. I mean, you got the typical gambling and swindling people out of money shit that you'd expect from a casino, but you also got like prostitution going on there, and you got drug dealers who are giving drugs to kids, and we see how this affects Chris directly because his nephew ends up getting on drugs.
Crystal meth. I'm sorry. I never did it before.
It's true. We might have kind of pushed him into it.
From the security guys working at the casino.
Then you get this big soap opera level scene where they're in this town courtroom because The Rock gets into a fight with a bunch of security guards at the casino. So he has to try and prove his innocence. You have a bunch of witnesses there in the seats, and you have people like, oh man, there's no way that he's going to be able to pull this off. He's going up against the one guy who's bringing this town's economy up, and it's all because of this like crooked crime shit. And it even seems like The Rock is going to fail because his lawyer is paid off by the owner of the casino.
So from what you saw, he seemed to have some kind of purpose.
I think he had a point to prove, yeah.
But The Rock is able to prove his worth to the people and actually plead innocent because he has this big, grandiose speech of, what's happened to this town?
Up in this town. People used to walk tall in this town. They wouldn't have traded the mill for a crooked casino.
Stefan, we're not here to listen to civic speech.
And they wouldn't have stood around while drugs were being sold to kids.
Because he goes down this huge speech, and the town then stands up and applauds him and basically makes him the town sheriff at that point, because that's what he says he wants to do. He's like, if I get out of this, I want to become the town sheriff, and I'm going to clean this place up.
Justified in what I did. And if you acquit me of these charges, then I'm going to run for sheriff.
Mr. Vaughn.
And if elected, I'm going to fix this town.
Order.
The way it played out seriously felt like one of those like stories that you see on like Twitter or Tumblr or whatever, where someone's talking about how they stood up to a bully at a restaurant or on a bus or something, and then it's like, and then everybody stood up and applauded, and my grandmother cried a tear and told me she was proud of me. So after The Rock becomes the town sheriff, he basically fires everybody there. Every single cop in that town is gone.
You have a tradition of professional courtesy up here, and I can personally vouch for each and every one of these men. They're good deputies.
You're all fired.
Hires basically a sidekick at that point in the form of Johnny Knoxville, who, I mean, I love him in the Jackass movies, and I even liked him in Bad Grandpa, but Johnny Knoxville, when he tries to do like quote-unquote serious acting, he's not very good.
Oh, what's up, man?
See you, man. Wow.
How you doing?
I'm all right. Huh?
What is that?
That's the love machine.
Girls actually get in there?
Rock hits him up because they're super close friends from childhood, and while he was off in the military, Johnny Knoxville tried getting into a band, and then he eventually became an alcoholic and a drug addict. He went to rehab, and now he's like a couple months clean, and he's trying to get his life in order. So The Rock, being a good buddy, threw him a bone, and so the two of them, they're fucking Batman and Robin running around this town and stopping all these like security guards and all these criminals, and it basically comes down to they're trying to stop the casino because the casino is essentially what's killing this town. Just like Rollerball, there really wasn't a whole lot to talk about with this movie, which is why I didn't do a full review for it. I was a little bit curious because it's like, oh, this is an action movie, kind of a thriller, kind of a drama movie, and it stars The Rock, and this is like back when The Rock, like I said, wanted to be taken seriously as an actor. Like, you can tell that there's a little bit more passion here versus a lot of movies that he does nowadays, like Jumanji and Jungle Cruise movie, and like Black Adam and other crap like that, you can clearly tell that those movies are just like paychecks for him. He doesn't really care. He's just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna show up, I'm gonna do my thing. I mean, like, even say what you want about Moana, it's like you could tell there was a little bit more passion in Moana than this shit here. And even like Red One, even though that's technically an original movie, Red One felt like a fucking Happy Madison movie. It felt like Pixels. It's like, it's the kind of movie where he clearly made it just so that he can hang out with his fellow celebrity friends, and, you know, they can hang out on a beach for a couple of hours, and then they just go, oh yeah, CG some snowmen that we have to fight, and then we can just spend the rest of the day hanging out and fucking off. You know, when he wasn't doing stuff like showing up to set late and then pissing in jugs in front of people. But yeah, as it stands, I mean, it's not that great of a movie, but honestly, I prefer movies like this over the movies that I just mentioned, because at least this had a little bit more passion behind it. There was a little bit more drive. Like, I can easily imagine people who are probably interested in wrestling and all that WWE stuff, like back when The Rock was known for that. I can easily imagine those kind of people watching this movie being like, well, you know, it has The Rock being badass and, you know, fucking up people with a 2x4. That's kind of awesome. If you're gonna watch this movie, it's definitely for those kind of people who, you know, used to like The Rock and used to like him as a wrestler and all that. As a movie itself, it pretty much plays out like a soap opera with a little bit more violence with some of the action scenes, but I mean, not terrible. I'll say this, it was better than Rollerball. Out of all the movies we're going to be talking about for this video so far, it's the better of the two. It was definitely leagues above Rollerball. And speaking of Red One, which also had Lucy Liu in it, we're going to be looking at a Lucy Liu vehicle movie. We're looking at 2006's Rise, Blood Hunter. Also known as I Can't Believe It's Not Blade. That's pretty much what it is. She's a vampire who fights other evil vampires. And man, I just want to say this right now. I really like Lucy Liu. I mean, she's one of those people where it's like, I've seen her in a bunch of different movies, and it's like, I generally liked her, and I think she can do really good performances, but damn, this was not good. Between this and X vs. Sever, which I talked about in the other 2000s movie marathon, holy shit. And that's a real shame, because it has an interesting premise. I mean, yeah, you could argue it's been done before. Like I said, it's kind of like knockoff Blade, but if it was handled well, if the script had a couple more rewrites and they actually took a couple more cracks at it, I feel like the movie could have been really something. It could have been interesting. But as it stands, it just kind of felt like a mess. First of all, this movie does that thing that I hate in a lot of movies where it starts in the middle of the action and then it rewinds to a certain period of time. Like, there's no reason that they needed to do that. They could have easily started from the beginning without having to do this whole, like, so you're probably wondering how I ended up here, and then rewinding 6 months. It started interesting. I'm like, all right, movie, you got my attention. You got this girl who's at this bar, and she's picked up by this one guy and Lucy Liu, and they both offer her money. And ultimately she goes with Lucy Liu because she pays her a lot more. So she goes to this place with Lucy Liu. Lucy Liu tells her to get washed up, but the only place that has soap in the bathroom is in the shower. So she goes to the shower, which then activates this cage mechanism, which traps her, and then she wakes up dangling upside down and bleeding. And she's cornered by this old dude in a wheelchair who's just a pair of sunglasses and pizza rolls away from being Mr. Plinkett.
Where is he?
1653 Kinney Drive. That's where you'll find Bishop. Now go.
Lucy Liu ends up killing this guy and freeing the girl and tells her not to mention any of this to anybody. And then that's when we do this stupid 6 months ago shit. Here it's revealed Lucy Liu's former human life, where she has a mother who looks like she's old enough to be her grandmother, and she has a little sister who's apparently graduating high school. So none of that made sense. All is going well for her. She works for this newspaper company, and they basically write tabloid smut, as it were. And one of the people that she works for is a hacker. So, you know, right off the bat, you get that, like, post-Matrix 2000s talk where Hollywood's idea of being a hacker.
This page is covered by a transparent image map.
And this invisible map leads to...
An address in Koreatown. And Lucky you. A slot just opened up in my hectic evening schedule. Maybe I'll meet some cute goth chick.
One of Lucy Liu's friends ends up getting taken by one of these vampire people, and Lucy Liu ends up getting taken as well by the leader of this like whole vampire crime like ring that's like, you know, underground and shady. The leader of this group is called Bishop. And here's where the movie just gets unnecessarily creepy. I mean, it's not super graphic, but some about it just felt really unnecessary and skeezy. But you have it that, you know, once Lucy Liu becomes a vampire and you find out what Bishop has done to her, not only did he bite her and turn her into a vampire, but in a quick flash, you also see like him slowly pulling her panties down. So it's also implied that he sexually assaulted her. At that point, Lucy Liu's a vampire. She looks in a mirror and she can't see her own reflection. Her family get word that she's dead, and everyone like that was close to her now thinks of her as dead. And this feels like this probably could have been the whole movie. Just her trying to cope with the fact that, you know, her whole human life, her whole human existence is gone. Everyone that once knew her does not see her anymore. She's basically presumed dead to all of her loved ones.
Mom, I love you so much. Mom, what are you doing? It's your sister, sweetheart.
Her mom Sadie's dead, remember?
But then after that, you have it that she slowly starts giving in to her more vampiric instincts. You have it that she ends up feasting on a human for the first time when she has to stay at this homeless shelter, and she ends up having to eat this one guy who's like really down on his luck, and it seems like his life isn't going to get better. And at that point I thought, okay, you can have it that like maybe she starts patrolling the streets and she's taking out like criminals and street toughs and all that kind of stuff. So maybe like she's doing vampire things, but she's doing it for good. She's taking out bad guys and criminals and feasting on them. But now, again, they don't even really do that. I mean, this guy then goes to her because, of course, he has a lot of connections. He has a lot of know-how. He knows a lot of what's going on. And he says, try to control your temper. And he gives her this like moonshine bottle of blood, and you know, basically she then starts to train and tries to prepare to go up against Bishop by the end of the movie. In between all that, you have a cop character. They establish that he also knows a little bit of what's going on because he's looking for revenge on his, what he presumes is dead daughter. And then him and Lucy Liu eventually cross paths, and again, I thought the movie was going to go in a completely different direction. I thought, okay, you can have it that maybe it's like a good cop, bad cop scenario. They both need to work together. They both don't like each other at first, but then you have it that maybe they need to start working together and compromising so that they can both meet the end goal of getting back at Bishop and these vampire people. And they kind of do, but not really.
Lady, what the hell did you do up there?
Call the cops. I think I forgot my question. You're sadly mistaken.
I don't know where she is.
I thought I already asked you to.
Oh, thanks for trying to inject some comedy into this movie that I assume you want us to take somewhat seriously. The only other thing I have to talk about with this movie is the ending, because at the end it turns out daughter isn't dead, but she is a vampire now, and Lucy Liu also comes across her friend who seems pretty well adjusted to being a vampire, and it seems like they've pretty much just succumbed to Bishop's will.
I'm your father, and I love you.
Bishop is my father, and my brother, and my lover. It would blow your mind, the things he makes me do.
Before all of this is where the opening came from, because they established like the four essential characters that are like the ones running this whole like underground vampire crime syndicate are Bishop and three other vampires, and the guy in the wheelchair was one of them, which, I mean, that guy, even by vampire standards, seems super old. So it's like, what the hell was he gonna do? He was no chance against Lucy Liu, armed with a crossbow. Which, yeah, that's the thing. Her only means of taking out vampires is a crossbow, specifically armed with, like, silver bullets. Which I thought that was Werewolf's thing, but going by this movie, that's how you take out vampires too, I guess. The point is, ultimately, Lucy Liu gets revenge. She kills Bishop, and she ends up dying herself. And the movie then ends with something that they straight up show at the beginning of the trailer for the movie, which is her being put away in a morgue. And then, because she's still alive, she ends up climbing out and running off into the night. And I was thinking, well shit, if I didn't see the trailer for this movie, I probably would have thought that was a kind of neat way to end, but I already knew it was coming. It was the first thing they showed. Now, I'm gonna say this for both this movie and the movie I'm gonna talk about next, but can they remake these movies? Because, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, yeah, knock off Blade, you know, good vampire going up against evil vampires. Honestly, I think there's a lot you can do with this premise. I think there's a lot of interesting potential here, and there were so many different angles they could have taken with it, and it just feels like they just kind of muddied it along the way. But I do think that maybe, just maybe, if someone has some hope, I mean, if they can fucking remake The Ring and The Grudge and all of this shit, you know, this is definitely one of those movies they were trying to capitalize at the time. Like, oh, all these Asian horror movies are super popular. Let's bring them to America with The Ring and The Grudge and Into the Mirrors and all that kind of stuff. And it feels like this movie was sort of trying to lean into that. It feels like there's definitely an interesting movie here. I would like to see them remake it, and I'd like to see them remake it better. So that's all that needs to be said about Rise Bloodhunter. Next up, we got a movie that came just a year after this, which was 2007's The Last Legion.
The Last Legion. Witness the beginning of King Arthur's legend.
Now, much like a lot of these movies, these are movies that were either big studio creations or they were made by a bunch of different little studios, and that's why they underperformed. Like, Rollerball was made by Columbia, and MGM did Walking Tall, and then Rise Bloodhunter was made by a bunch of studios I never heard of. This one, on the other hand, this was made by the Weinstein Company. So that's already a strike against it. But movie itself, it's a period piece movie. It's a historical epic. Going off of the trailer, because as I've said many times before, I try to watch the trailers to make sure these movies are real, or at least try to get a feel for what the movies might be before I actually watch the movie. And in the trailer, they basically say, watch The Fall of Rome and learn the origins of Excalibur. That's the thing that they show in the trailer, and it's the very fucking end of the movie. So they couldn't even keep that a secret. But I mean, they weren't lying. I mean, you get to see the fall of Rome in this movie. And there are two people I recognized. You have Colin Firth, who's one of the main guys, and you have Ben Kingsley as a wizard who, spoilers or whatever, turns out to be Merlin.
And Ambrosianus took back his real name. Merlin.
You. Merlin, it's just a story.
I would harp on Ben Kingsley for being in this movie, but damn it, he's been in so much worse shit than this. I mean, fuck. You got Thunderbirds movie, Sound of Thunder, Blood Rain, Love Guru, which came out the year after this one, so clearly Ben Kingsley's done way worse in terms of his career. Everything after Gandhi in that man's career is just one big massive yeah. But in the movie, you follow the last of the Caesar bloodline, and we see Rome inevitably get taken over by a bunch of barbarians, and they have him and a bunch of other people who are looking out for him rounded up, and they're taken to this island that has this big maximum security prison. And so as Rome inevitably falls, you have it that they're trying to protect this kid because they know he's going to go on to do great things. And Colin Firth is like the leader of these warriors, these sort of like royal guard types that are trying to protect him. And you have this sort of like spiritual advisor character who is Ben Kingsley as this wizard. He's Merlin, but in my head I was also thinking it's his attempt at trying to play a Gandalf type character, because that's pretty much how he plays the guy.
Are you some kind of priest? A sorcerer?
Just a seeker after the truth. You would never understand.
And along the way, Colin Firth ends up falling in love with this lady who is working for the maximum security prison, but she switches sides. She's supposed to be like the guardian of the lake or whatever. She's supposed to be like some kind of higher up in this whole thing. And then she inevitably joins their crew, falls in love with Colin Firth. They have to protect this kid. inevitably they have to get all of them off of this island without a scratch on them and make it all the way across the ocean to Britannia, which obviously we know is going to later go on to become Britain. And there's this village that are being oppressed by this guy who's running around with an MF Doom mask. And then this evil guy who's oppressing these villages of people in Britannia, he ends up teaming up with the barbarians who took over Rome because there's this guard who eventually joined their side, and he's the main villain for the movie, and he wants to take out the last of the Caesars, the little boy, because they established right off the bat from the beginning he does not like that kid.
When I have the sword, I will make you a gift to the boy.
And the man?
The man is mine.
He's the main villain. He wants to take the kid out. He ends up joining forces, and the people of these villages inevitably decide to follow the kid and his ragtag team. So then we get this big action set piece by the end of the movie. They have this big fight scene that feels like a million other movies. It's kind of like Lord of the Rings, which I'll definitely say that a lot when we get to the next movie we're going to talk about, but it's kind of like Lord of the Rings, and it's kind of like a lot of other like giant historical biblical epic movies that we've seen a million times over. It's kind of like Gladiator, it's kind of like Troy, it's kind of like 300, which ironically came out that exact same year, except 300 was a lot more stylized. This movie just kind of looks like your typical period piece movie. And that's the problem. It's like, I really did want to give the movie a chance because even though I'm not super into those kind of movies, I do think they have their place. And when done well, I think they can be very interesting. I think the most backhanded compliment I can give this movie is that it was better than Gladiator 2. The movie ends, like, some of our heroes die. Colin Firth gets into a big fight with the main villain dude as all the barbarians basically flee, and MF Doom is essentially done for. They get into a fight. Colin Firth manages to survive, but he does get hurt really badly in the fight. And the little kid is the one that ends up doing the bad guy in because he takes the sword, rams it right through him, kills him right then and there, and he decrees to all of his loyal subjects, you know, that these village people in Britannia, you know, my first decree, no more war. And he throws the sword, and the sword lands right in the middle of a fucking rock, and that's how Excalibur came to be.
No more blood. No more war!
The reason I didn't do a full review for this one was because there wasn't really a whole lot to say. This movie's biggest sin is that it's just kind of boring. And while I'm not a fan of these kind of movies off the bat, I mean, you know, I saw Gladiator a long time ago. I thought it was a fine movie. Braveheart, you know, while there's some historical inaccuracies from what I can tell, I didn't think Braveheart was a bad movie. I feel like that's what this movie is desperately trying to be. It's sort of trying to be like its own generation's version of those kind of movies, and it's just kind of lackluster. And, you know, the cast, I mean, you got some talented people in there, but it didn't really feel like they were giving it their all. I mean, that's the best I could say. I'm like, I really wanted to like it, and it's not that it was the worst thing I ever sat through, but I was just kind of bored the whole time. I was just kind of, you know, counting the clock and waiting for it to be over. All that being said, like I said back with Rise Blood Hunter, I want this movie to be remade because I feel like movies like this should have more of a chance. I mean, the most recent example I can think of was Gladiator 2, because I do remember there was like that brief stint in the mid-2010s where they were really trying to bring these kind of movies back. You had like Gods of Egypt, and they had a Ben-Hur remake that no one remembers. And it's like, I like the idea of them trying to bring these kind of movies back because they were all the rage in the 70s. You know, it was like, you know, oh, the glorious days of Rome and all that kind of thing. I think that maybe there could be like a newfound resurgence, maybe someday down the road. But I'd be at least curious to see them try and make a movie like this. I mean, fuck, they're still making King Arthur movies, and as far as I can tell, those just kind of flop because I guess not a lot of people are interested in them anymore. While they're not my kind of movies, I can at least be like, okay, I've seen it a million times, but at least it's something that's not just connected to a fucking IP or recognizable brand. So much like Rise Blood Hunter, I'd be curious to see them try and do a remake of this. I mean, seriously, do what so many people have said before, and do remakes of movies that turned out bad in the first place, so you can remake them and make them better. Anyway, enough of that. Moving on to the next movie, which is probably the most unintentionally hilarious of the bunch. We got D-War, also known as Dragon Wars. This was a South Korean-American co-production, and this movie was trying so hard to capitalize on a million different things. The big one I can think of, it was definitely trying to cash in on the Roland Emmerich, Jerry Bruckheimer, Michael Bay style big summer blockbuster disaster movies, where there's a bunch of shit that's rampaging through a town. In this case, you got a bunch of CGI dragons, and, well, they try to apply a story to it, and their attempt at trying to bring both East and West together failed so spectacularly, because this movie really sucks. For some reason, the movie begins with an opening narration that they just later go on to elaborate like 15 minutes into the movie, because you then do this whole, like, flashback within a flashback that explains this whole origin of, like, in 15th century Korea, there were these people that went to war with this bad guy who had an army of monsters, and he was even armed with dragons. And there were this, like, small collective of people, much like in Last Legion, but there was a small ragtag team of people, and, you know, there was a guy and a girl. The guy is essentially the chosen one, and the girl has some kind of connection to dragons. She has a dragon tattoo on her. So that's their way of telling that she has connections and some kind of power over or involving these dragons. And the entire time during this flashback sequence, I was like, you know what they could have used? They could have used a trio of women who sing that take out dragons. K-pop dragon hunters, tell me you wouldn't see that shit. So the main character, I'm blanking on the actor's name, but the entire time I just kept calling him a crossbreed between Luke Wilson and Tom Cruise because of his face and the way his haircut was done.
Ethan Kendrick, CJNN. How would you explain the situation here, guys?
Here's how I explain this. Do yourself a favor. Get yourself back beyond the barrier. Now.
So he's the main character. He works for a news company, much like Lucy Liu's character in Rise. And he has the sassy best friend played by Craig Robinson, who, you know what? He was trying, man. I always like Craig Robinson. He is trying in this movie. He's trying to be the kind of comic relief, but then, you know, near the end of the movie when all the shit starts going down, he's got to be like the kind of guy who's like, wait, what's going on? Dude, you got to tell me. What is all this? There's dragons now? What's going on, man?
What the hell was that? I told you it was gonna be big. Yeah, you said it was big. You didn't say it was something that could maybe swallow a bus.
Craig Robinson knew the assignment and fuck it, he went for it. He knew the movie was gonna suck and he just fucking leapt right in. So there's that, and then you have this one girl who's connected to the main guy, and she's the descendant of the girl with the dragon tattoo, and they end up hospitalizing her because they think that she has some kind of mental problem because her ramblings about dragons coming to life and attacking her friends sounds crazy to people. And they also have this minor subplot that's mostly just there for comedy, but you have this this kind of schlubby guy who works at a zoo, and he noticed that, like, the elephants at the zoo got eaten by dragons, and then he ends up in the mental asylum in a straitjacket, and there's, like, dragons flying by in the window, and he tries to get people to turn around to see it, and they miss it.
I hate to say this, but the giant snake is in this hospital right now. Look, out your window.
Time again. He has to be hospitalized.
Schlubby guy who's a zookeeper. It pretty much is just an alternate reality version of The Zookeeper with Kevin James. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff involving this girl and trying to get her out of this mental asylum, and main guy having to get ready for the return of this inevitable bad guy who looks like a rejected Lord of the Rings villain. And there are so many things in this movie that feel like knockoff Lord of the Rings. When you get to the end of the movie where everything's on green screen, it looks like they're in knockoff Mordor, and it looks like they were just one ring and a volcano away from throwing it in. There's just a bunch of stuff of people trying to convince other people that there are real dragons that are going around. Like at one point you show like these friends of theirs, and they go to their place to try and have some premarital sex.
Cut it out!
What?
5 years old?
Come on, what's the rush?
Chris, she's in the hospital.
Oh, I know.
But then they end up running out of the house and they see a dragon in the backyard, and before they can turn, instead of like going through the house, they try to go through like the side area because it's in California, of course it is. And the bad guy shows up and they're like, oh no, then they try to run away and then they just fucking get eaten by the dragons. I gotta talk about this because everyone is so quick to be like, well, the movie's not very good, but some of the dragon effects are good. And I'm like, are they? I mean, yeah, it looks fine, but at the same time, I'm like, man, this looks like fucking Asylum level effects that were given a little bit more spit polish. I thought that the special effects were probably one of the better things in the movie, but I didn't think that they were that good. This feels like the kind of movie, if you gave it to Bong Joon-ho, he probably would have made a way better movie. I mean, Bong Joon-ho is one of those directors where even if you give him a lower budget to work with, he can still manage to make a pretty fucking good movie. I mean, you look at something like The Host, like that wasn't that high of a budget when it came to a movie, but that was a fucking good monster movie. That was like leagues above this. It just comes down to this big fight scene, and yeah, the plot itself takes a backseat to when we get to the third act climax where bad guy is fucking leading all these fucking monsters to rampage through the streets, and there are dragons that are fucking taking out helicopters and wrapping themselves around buildings like they're like a lizard version of King Kong or some shit, and then they end up taking all of it to this like mystical fantasy land of green screen, and the main guy and main girl have to try and like stop the dragons, and because you have a dragon that's good and a dragon that's evil, so you think that she ends up getting killed by the evil dragon, you think she's possessed by like the evil magic of the dragon, and she gets up and she's able to transfer power before she inevitably dies into the good dragon, who then gets back up and beats the shit out of the evil dragon. There is just so much to talk about with this movie. There's so much to talk about. Honestly, I recommend just looking up the movie and watching it yourself. This movie, it borders on so bad it's good. I mean, I haven't felt this way about a bad movie in quite a while. Like, the last one I can remember that was kind of like this was like Beastly. Like, it's one of those movies where it's like, I want other people to see how bad it is so that they can laugh at all the really terrible shit that's in it. But that being said, I mean, it's not really like a laugh a minute so bad it's a good movie. It's just one of those movies where I just sat there the entire time just going, this is real. Holy shit, this is real. Oh my god, I can't fucking believe they're doing this shit. And you know what? This movie was better than Bride Wars, which came out the next year. I'd rather see poorly animated dragons fighting than really horrible comedy rivalry antics between Kate Hudson and Anne Hathaway. That's for sure. And with that, we come to our last movie, Punisher Warzone. Now, the reason I wanted to do this for a full video at first, before deciding to talk about it for here, was because I kept hearing, oh yeah, it's a terrible comic book movie from the 2000s, you know, there were so many of them. I looked at a lot of them. I talked about some of them in their own separate reviews, some of them in the last movie marathon we did. I mean, you got Catwoman, you got the Ben Affleck Daredevil, you got Elektra, you got Blade Trinity, you got The Spirit. There are so many bad comic book movies from around that time, and I was ready to talk about it. But after watching it and also reading a couple of written reviews before going into it that said, oh man, people didn't know what they were talking about. This is actually a really good movie. It's a lot better than people gave it credit for when it came out. I have to say, I really liked this movie. Is it a perfect movie? No, not really. Do I prefer the Punisher movie that came before it? Yes, but only by a little bit. Because I feel like as its own Punisher movie, this pretty much works. It feels like it did what The Spirit was trying to do. It's a comic book movie that's really stylized, and except that movie did the whole like, you know, black and white noir style, and I personally like a lot of other people felt that it didn't really pull it off well in the same way that, say, the first Sin City did. You look at this movie, it's trying to be sort of this like 80s crime thriller action film that has like a lot of like neon lighting, and honestly, if this was in like any other movie, it would have been really distracting and really garish, but I felt that it really added a lot to the style of the movie. I really liked it. They really leaned into it. It's a comic book movie that leans into its style, but not in a way that's like really obnoxious, like obvious choice like Batman and Robin.
Much better, thanks.
And on top of that, you have a really interesting story here. You have it that the Punisher, who's known for going up against crime and corruption, and specifically going after a lot of crooked cops and stuff like that, you have it that the Punisher ends up killing an innocent cop. And he's horribly grief-stricken by this. He feels horrible for what he did. He killed an innocent man. And so what he does is he tries to repay the family with money that was originally stolen by the mob. So he tries to use that money to pay the family back, but the wife opens the door and holds him at gunpoint and basically asks a very crucial question of, well, you're a Punisher. Well, who gets to punish you when you do something wrong?
Who punishes you?
He taught you how to shoot. Good agent keeps his family safe. We couldn't always be here. Took you out to the range. Showed you what to do. This is where you do.
And so it's at that point you got the Punisher basically questioning his whole existence as the Punisher at that point. You have Frank Castle seriously taking a step back and being like, yeah, what have I done? My actions have consequences. I can't fucking believe that this happened. And he feels horrible about it. And it feels like a really good character study of the character. It's like, this is something I would want to see in a Punisher story. And along the way, you have it that he teams up with a couple of other characters, a former crooked cop who wants to be on his side and tries to push him in the right direction.
Yeah. Listen to me. Rosati is heading to the Donatelli house. You have to let me go.
You have the right to shut the fuck up!
And you also have a comic relief character who's, some might find annoying, but I mean, he overstays his welcome sometimes, but I didn't really mind him all that much.
You know what I like to do? I like to sit in my car and listen to the CB radio and follow the crime.
Not to mention, you have a weapons expert that he's teamed up with, who's basically his like partner in crime, played by Newman from Seinfeld, which that just made me laugh, because seeing Wayne Knight in basically any role makes me happy.
Rosati's the last one. Then I'm done.
From your lips to God's ears.
You know where I can find him?
I don't have a fix on him. You wiped out all of his associates that are known to me.
And then you get to the villains in this movie. Holy shit, these guys chew scenery like it's fucking dinner. These guys, okay, you got Jigsaw, who is basically stereotypical mob boss, pretty boy, who ends up getting his face ruined, and he basically is given the Chucky special. His face is like all stitched up. And so, yeah, the one thing he had, which was his looks, taken away.
Billy is dead. From now on, you call me Jigsaw.
And he also needs aid from his brother, who is locked up in the Looney Bin, as his name is LBJ, Looney Bin Jim. And yeah, once these two get together, first of all, I actually really believed that they were brothers. They actually felt like believable psychopath brothers.
One, I will find Castle and I will kill him slowly and painfully. You will never, ever have to look at your reflection again. As long as you're with me.
And secondly, these guys, they knew the assignment. They're like, we're playing fucking comic book villains. We're just gonna go fucking ham with it. These guys, they play such sadistic, over-the-top bastards in this movie. They were just as infectious as seeing the Punisher on screen. I really liked these guys' portrayal of these characters. I thought they did really good.
That was fun.
Another thing that you'd expect from a Punisher movie that this movie did not fail to deliver was the gratuitous violence. There is a lot of violence, and I would show a highlight reel here, but considering YouTube being YouTube these days, something tells me that would get the video just immediately taken down. And I like the way it came around full circle. Now, if you haven't seen the movie and you want to, you totally skip this part and just jump to final thoughts. But if you do want to know what happens, it's a genuinely touching, really bittersweet ending, because you have it that the Punisher is finally poised with a situation. You have it that Wayne Knight is kidnapped and held at gunpoint, and the daughter of the cop that was killed is held at gunpoint.
Who's it to be? Your fat friend right here? Or that nice little piece of jailbait over there?
Burning hell.
Okay, then they both die.
Frank! She's a kid. Shoot me.
And the Punisher, not wanting to have the widow go through the grief of losing her husband and her daughter, has to bite the bullet and has to have Wayne Knight die. And you genuinely feel the emotion in that scene, because it's like, you can tell it's not an easy choice. He doesn't want to do it, but because of his guilt, he doesn't want to have the widow go through that again. So he has to tell his friend, his confidant, his partner, I'm sorry. And you know, it's brutal, man. And that's the thing that motivates him at the end of the movie to say, no, I'm not quitting being the Punisher. I got more crime that I gotta fucking clean up.
For the last time, give me your wallet.
This is a genuinely good comic book movie, and this is why I didn't do it as a full review, because I was so expecting to not like it, but going into this movie, I really wanted to talk about what I liked about it, because yeah, this really wasn't that bad. And I was thinking, okay, maybe people didn't like it compared to the first Punisher movie, because the first Punisher movie is genuinely good too. And yeah, it does feel like a shame, because, you know, the person who made the original, the director, and even the star of the first Punisher, they were originally connected to it when, like, in the early stages, but as, you know, the rewrites kept coming in, inevitably, you know, the lead actor left, and the director was like, look, I wish Marvel all the best, but I can't do this. All of that was a shame, but I really liked this movie. I didn't really find a whole lot wrong with it. I'm not going to sit here and act like it's a perfect movie, but shit, I mean, it should be pretty obvious what I thought was the best of these movies. I genuinely enjoyed Punisher Warzone. So now that we're at final thoughts, as if it isn't obvious enough, the best of these, I would definitely say, was Punisher Warzone. I really liked it a lot. As a close second, I would say probably Walking Tall. You know, I thought that was an okay movie compared to some of the other ones. And Dragon Wars is entertaining for all the wrong reasons. I don't know. Again, that's not a great So Bad It's Good movie, but there were so many things that just left me perplexed. I was like, I cannot fucking believe this is real. As for the other three, as for what's probably the worst of the lot, I don't know, man. I want to say Rollerball, just because it was the ultimate way of starting off on the wrong foot. You start with one you really disliked, and then you get to Punisher Warzone, it's like, holy shit, I really like this one. But yeah, Rollerball, just horribly muddled mishandling of a really intelligent story. And the other two, I just kind of feel like missed opportunities. I feel like, I seriously wish both those movies do get inevitably renewed, and like interest for them gets picked up. And I really want to see those stories redone, because I think you can have interesting stories in there, but, you know, the way both of them turned out, Last Legion and Rise Bloodhunter, just muddled. So yeah, I'm pretty comfortable in saying worst of the bunch, probably Rollerball. It's not the worst movie I've ever sat through for Blockbusters, but out of these 6 movies, yeah, I probably dislike that one the most. So that does it for Blockbusters show in November. We have 4 reviews coming next month. We're going to be looking at some Christmas or holiday or winter themed movies. And yeah, that's going to be the final 4 videos we're going to be doing for Blockbusters this year. Thank you guys for watching this movie marathon. I'm Adam Sykes of the Blockbuster Show, and oh shit, I should probably explain why I have a G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra on DVD there. Well, let me tell you, it's actually a really funny story.